Welcome to another news of the week video. So in these past couple days, there has definitely been a lot of notable MLS players that decided to make the jump to Europe, and that a lot of these players have now left their MLS team to go to Europe to join a team there on a 6-month loan deal. And I guess the reason why that is the case is that this might be a telling sign that the league is indeed heading into a lockout, or the fact that Monday was the European transfer deadline day, and all these players want to make sure they make their move, or else they might have to wait until the summer transfer window that's going to be opening either in June or July before their next chance of potentially going to Europe and making the jump there. But that being said, the first player that we're going to talk about that make the jump to Europe in these last couple of days is actually a player that been rumored to go to Syria for a very long time, and it pretty much was confirmed that he was gonna be leaving MLS and indeed gonna be going to Europe and Italy. But the only question is, when exactly is Bryan Reynolds going to go to? Is he gonna go to Roma, or is he gonna go to Juventus? And that both of these two teams have been battling to try to win the Bryan Reynolds sweepstake, and in the end, it was Roma, the one that won the Bryan Reynolds sweepstake, as they officially acquire him on Monday, and that they actually pay FC Dallas around $5 million with an add-on total at $6 million, which would be the highest transfer for fees that FC Dallas is able to acquire of one of their player. Now, what's interesting about this deal is that from what I read, it seems like Roma is going to get Bryan Reynolds, and that there's nothing that's told me that he potentially could be going on loan to another Serie A team, or maybe going to another European team. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because when Juventus decided to offer FC Dallas a sum of money and also trying to get Bryan Reynolds, they did say that part of the deal is that he is going to be sent to a year-long loan to another Serie A club before, if he is able to meet the requirement of what Juventus think he could be, then he could potentially be signing with Juventus and be with the first team permanently. So, I guess with this deal, maybe Reynolds is just going to go straight into the Roma team, and not quite sure he's going to be a regular starter with the team, but I'm guessing maybe he's going to be starting out kind of like a player coming off the bench and more of a utility player. And if he does do well, then maybe Roma potentially will promote him to be a starter. But either way, it's definitely an exciting time for him, and I'm hoping he's going to do well with Roma, because we're looking at a guy that could potentially be a future U.S. men's national team fullback player in a couple of years. Now, Paul Arriola have recently did the same move that Jordan Morris did a couple of days ago, and that is he decided to join Swansea City on loan. And this, like the Jordan Morris deal, is a 6-month loan deal. But unlike the Jordan Morris deal, this loan doesn't have an option to buy. And what I kind of find it interesting is when I read the article of Paul Arriola decided to join Swansea City on loan from DC United, they said that there is not an option to buy. But then after that, they basically said, well, after the 6-month loan deal is over, both sides can basically negotiate, and that Swansea City could potentially sign him permanently if they reach an agreement with DC United. And the way that they kind of worded like that, I was thinking, like, isn't that kind of the definition of option to buy? I mean, in other words, you might as well just kind of put the option to buy next to his name. But obviously, Arriola, he decided to go to Europe mainly because he wants to go there so that he can be on the frisk of becoming a U.S. men's national team player. But certainly for DC United, this is a huge loss for them, and that I would say that this is even bigger loss than what Seattle losing Jordan Morris for the first couple of months of the season, or maybe permanently, because for DC United, it was pretty clear that last year they desperately missed Paul Arriola, and knowing the fact that he did so well during that January friendly against Trinidad and Tobago, I'm pretty sure a lot of DC fans were very excited to have him back in the starting 11 this upcoming season. And then when they heard this news, yeah, it looks like they're probably not going to have him in the starting 11 unless if he decided to come back to this team after his loan deal is over. And when I look at this DC United attack, there's really not a lot of guys that I would definitely trust to be the guys that is going to be scoring the goals for this team. And the fact that they also haven't gone to the market this offseason to see whether or not if they can potentially find some attacking player that can really help improve their attack is definitely a little bit concerning. Like, I understand that maybe the front office of DC United is thinking that, well, in the last offseason, we tried to get some attacking power, or at least add to our attacking power, and all those players just kind of blow up in their face. So this season, we're not going to exactly do that. Yeah, but here's the problem. If you decided to do that and you're already having some issue with your attack, I mean, by doing nothing is not going to help them out. And I also know that they also don't have an actual number 9 on their team. And yeah, I mean, when you have not only problem on the attack and not a lot of guys that can score goals, but also you have no striker on your team, this could be a long season for DC United if they don't sort out that attacking front, and that they don't sign guys to really get that attack going. Because if they don't do that, it should be another season where it's going to be similar to last year, where this team just have problem in terms of scoring goals. Now, Bryan Rodriguez have joined UD Almeria on loan with an option to buy from LAFC. Now, this is kind of a surprising one with the way that Rodriguez decided to go make the jump to Europe, but he's actually going to be joining a second division side and a Segunda division side, that is UD Almeria. However, from what I heard is that Almeria is a team just like Swansea City that is battling for promotion. So if Almeria does get promoted next season and Bryan Rodriguez plays a big part of it, he could potentially be a La Liga player, and that I'm pretty sure if Almeria does get promoted, most likely LAFC is going to exercise, or Almeria is going to exercise that option to buy, and LAFC pretty much is going to say yes, unless if the amount that Almeria decided to give to LAFC does not met the requirement of what LAFC think that they need if they want to sell Bryan Rodriguez permanently, which I'm assuming they'll probably offer a reasonable price, because again, as I mentioned in my moving forward series for LAFC, they are definitely thinking about cashing in all these young players that they develop, and especially with how Bryan Rodriguez definitely was not what they expected from last season. They're just trying their best to hope there's going to be a team in Europe that is able to pay almost around the same amount of money that LAFC was able to acquire Bryan Rodriguez in the first place. And if they can do that, I think it's going to be a win-win situation for them. Now, Darryl DK decided to join Barnsley on loan with an option to buy, and I kid you not, when I finished doing my Orlando City moving forward series back on Monday, I literally heard this news right after I finished that video, and I was like, are you kidding me? I literally spent most part of that video talking about guys like Chris Mueller and Darryl DK, and especially Darryl DK, of how he's going to do in his second year with Orlando City, and now it seemed like he's not going to be part of this team, at least for the first part of the season. As I heard, this loan deal is also kind of a 6-month loan deal, and it has an option to buy. And Barnsley is a team that is no stranger in terms of potentially getting MLS player. I remember this team used to be a couple of months ago been linked with a couple of MLS player, and unfortunately they weren't able to get those player. And I thought, well, this is just Barnsley's best attempt to try to raid a couple of MLS player, and it tends and unfortunately failed. But it seemed like they eventually did get one of these MLS player, and got a decent one in Darryl DK. And DK, with him only having one year experience in MLS and with Orlando City, I was kind of surprised that he made the jump to Europe this soon, and that I thought he would maybe wait for another year, where heading in to the second year, I still kind of have questioned whether or not if he can follow up that amazing form that he had during his rookie season into his second year. And if he can, of course, do that, then no doubt that he would get even a better offer with a European team. But now, with him joining joining Barnsley, and that he's going to need to perform for the team. And if he's unable to perform the team, I'm pretty sure Barnsley is not going to exercise that option to buy, which in some way that actually isn't bad either way, because let's say if DK does struggle with Barnsley, at least Orlando City is able to get him back, and maybe he'll find a little bit more comfortable going with the team. And again, if he does perform well once he get back to the Orlando City team, there might be other teams that could be definitely interested to buy him in the future. But all I'm saying is, I feel like seems like a little bit too soon for a player that just had a breakout year in his first season to just immediately make the jump to Europe and immediately look for opportunity in Europe. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, is that the Vancouver Whitecaps have mutually agreed to terminate David Milinkovic's contract, and this seems more to do with the fact that Milinkovic have said that he feels a little bit homesick, and that he wants to go back to Europe so that he can be closer to home and closer to contact with his family. And I definitely respect what he is doing, and really respect any foreign player that decided to basically not going to be staying in MLS and head back to Europe or any other country, because anytime when a foreign player come to the US to play in this league, it's definitely going to be very difficult because of the culture difference, and there's not really a lot of friends that they potentially could make, and they're also leaving behind their families. But it's even especially more difficult now we're in a pandemic, and how a lot of these foreign players aren't able to get back to the home country even during the off season because of the lockdown restrictions. So yeah, it's understandable why a lot of these players are going back to Europe or going back to closer to their home country, and Milinkovic is just kind of an example of that. But other than that, I don't think the Whitecaps lose a lot with Milinkovic now leaving the team, because I didn't think he was that spectacular with the Whitecaps, and he definitely wasn't part of what I think was them to potentially find a true number 9 to continue to make progress in their rebuild. And I've heard that recently they have rumored to get Octavio from Porto, and even though that rumor seems to be a little bit dead right now because there hasn't been any further reports of whether or not if the Whitecaps are actually going for him, I still feel like the Whitecaps are looking for a better option than Milinkovic in that number 10 spot to continue to get themselves back to competitive level. But moving on in terms of next news, and now moving away in terms of players leaving in MLS, to now talk about players that actually signed with MLS club. And despite the fact there was a lot of players leaving MLS, there was still some notable players that decided to come to MLS and join with one of these teams. And one of those players is Rodrigo Pinero, who has officially signed with Nashville SC on a DP contract. And this pretty much take all the boxes of what an MLS team really want to do in the transfer market, especially on the attacking front, which is they're going to go down to South America, look for these hidden gems, and especially players that is already a youth international for their country that they're playing, and eventually snatch them up to come to MLS and hope to develop them so that they can sell them off to Europe or any other place for a big sum of money. And I know there's already people comparing him to be potentially the next Diego Rossi, because he actually come in from the same team that Rossi used to play before he came to LAFC in Pinero. But we shall see whether or not if he can definitely be a decent player for Nashville, and if he is able to do so, then yeah, it definitely fixes a huge issue that Nashville has from last season, which is especially on the attack. And I really think Nashville, as long as they can figure out the attack, and there's people that can of course score goals for this team can definitely jump themselves up into near the top half or even the top tier of MLS, because I really think this team has a top tier level of defense and also right around the top tier level of midfield. But the only reason why they aren't considered a potential MLS Cup contender or even a threat in the Eastern Conference is the attack that is kind of holding them back. Now, Atlanta United decided to re-sign Kubo Torres, but also waive Adam John at the same time. Now, I'm kind of surprised by this move, and in many ways, I feel like Atlanta probably should have done the opposite, where instead of re-signing Kubo Torres and waive Adam John, they should re-sign Adam John and waive Kubo Torres. And I think the biggest reason why that should be the case is I feel like Adam John is, as much as he wasn't as effective going forward on the attack, I still think he was a better option than whatever Kubo Torres was at Atlanta. Like, I understand Kubo Torres, when he joined Atlanta, he wants to not only do well with the team, but also get a chance to get back on the Mexican national team. But with the performance that he put against Atlanta, where he only scored 1 goal during the time when he was with Atlanta, yeah, that's definitely not a good sign or a chance for him to get back to the Mexican national team. And that, again, in terms of stat-wise and performance, I would rather take Adam John as a backup striker for Atlanta and the backup for Joseph Martinez instead of Kubo Torres that they decided to resign. But you never know. Maybe Kubo Torres would eventually turn a corner, and I have no doubt that he's not going to get as much playing time as he did last time, since again Joseph Martinez is going to be that number 9 for this team. But in case if Martinez does suffer an injury, which I'm pretty sure a lot of Atlanta fans hope that it's not going to be the case, Kubo Torres got to perform and got to step in and score the goals, because if he doesn't step in and score the goals, this could really be a very bad re-sign that they of course just did. Now, Sporting KC have added an experienced French center back called Nicolas Immobile. I think that's how you pronounce. And apparently, this is a guy that's have over 300 plus appearance in League and also in the Eredivisie and the Turkish Super League. And I guess this is also kind of a replacement for Winston Reid that they decided to let go of this offseason. And Reid actually is now back in England with Brentford. But yeah, SKC is really hoping that he could definitely be the player to solve their biggest issue that they've been having in the last 2 seasons, which is they don't have a relatively good center back. And although, as I mentioned, that he is a relatively experienced center back, it doesn't guarantee the fact that he's going to do well in MLS. I mean, we have seen players that tends to be experienced in these big league in Europe, but once they come to MLS, it's not all the time that they can translate into the same good form that they were in Europe compared to when they of course come to MLS. But I'm pretty sure SKC is really hoping he is going to be the guy that will fix the biggest issue that this team has, which is obviously on the defensive end. Now, Orlando City also added a defender. They added Liga MX defender Jonathan Suarez from Querétaro. And remember how in my moving forward series for Orlando, and I talked about how it's been a relatively quiet off season for them. Well, they must have heard that and kind of took it personally, because they immediately decided to sign a player, and this time decided to sign Jonathan Suarez from Querétaro. But I really think this is kind of more of a signing to improve their depth in terms of the fullback. I mean, as good as this roster that Orlando City has, they do lack a little bit of the depth, especially on the fullback position. So yeah, I think this is definitely a move that could solve that issue. And although I don't know much about this guy and whether or not if he can be a decent second or backup kind of fullback into this team, we shall see how of course he is going to do. And that I still think this is a good option for them in terms of adding some depth in terms of the fullback position. Now, speaking of depth signing, the Seattle Sounders decided to sign Spencer Richie off a free agency, and no doubt this is also a depth signing in terms of the goalkeeping position. And I think Richie is going to be the backup goalkeeper for this team. And that, you know, not only the fact that I think this is a decent signing for the Sounders, getting Spencer Richie, which if he is the backup goalkeeper, he's definitely an above average backup goalkeeper around the league. But this is also a good move for Spencer Richie himself, where he is going to kind of have a homecoming going to the Seattle Sounders, as he is a Seattle native, and the fact that he finally can get out of the hellhole that is FC Cincinnati and join a team that is going to be more competitive in MLS and potentially going to get some trophy along the way heading into next season. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Seattle is going to be the team that is more competitive and definitely are going to be competing for MLS Cup again next year compared to FC Cincinnati that is in a rebuilding stage and trying for hope that third year is finally the charm for them to actually build a decent squad to not be the laughingstock of MLS. Now, Minnesota has decided to re-sign Jacori Hayes, Brent Coleman, Callum Montgomery, and Adrian Zendejant. And notice how all these names that I mentioned, and I did not mention Ozzy Alonso, and this kind of does make me a little bit concerned about the future of Ozzy Alonso with Minnesota. You know, I've heard speculation that he could potentially go back to Seattle and kind of have that homecoming, which, you know, despite the fact it's a speculation, I won't be surprised if that's the case, because the Sounders seems like this offseason they're signing a lot of players that are either Seattle native or just long time kind of player for their team, and that it just would be fitting the fact that they decided to sign one if not probably the best player for the Sounders team throughout the entire history of the Sounders being in the league. And after all, Ozzy Alonso is the only player that I think is around the league that was part of that expansion season back in 2009. The Sounders had entering MLS, or actually it wasn't 2009, was it? Or 2010. But either way, you know, that would be a good homecoming, but at the same time, I really hope that he does stay with Minnesota and that, you know, hopefully we do give him a new contract. But that being said, from what I also heard is that, you know, despite the fact that the Blues are trying to give him a relatively good contract, Ozzy Alonso basically said that he wants the salary of the contract to be a little bit higher, and I'm not sure if Minnesota is going to try to grant his wishes. Especially, this is the same team that, remember, they decided to let go of Kevin Molino because they decided to not offer him a DP contract, and eventually they kind of let him go. This is a team that is not known to grant players' wishes, to demand them to get a higher salary. And another player that also there is a speculation that he might not return for this Loons team is Marlon Hairston. As you know, talking about how Jacori Hayes being re-signed with this team, most likely this means that Marlon Hairston is not going to return. And it's such a shame, the fact that he's not going to be back with this team, because I thought he was a very versatile player in the midfield, and certainly we will miss his versatile presence in the midfield if we decided to not re-sign him. Now, the New York Red Bulls have turned down multiple England loan bids for Aaron Long, and actually now we are moving toward the rumors part of news of the week. And as I mentioned earlier, talk about all these notable players that have left MLS to go to Europe to basically go there on loan. Well, one player that I thought was going to join the numerous notable player to go to Europe is Aaron Long, but apparently the Red Bulls are saying that Aaron Long is going to be staying with this team, and he is going nowhere, at least in this off season. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is a decision that Aaron Long decided to make where he's happy to stay with the Red Bulls, or is this the Red Bulls just saying that no, we're not going to sell one of our best player. But either way, I was kind of surprised that Long decided to not go to Europe, knowing the fact that he is going to be 28 heading into next season, and that's right around the age where, you know, you're at your peak of your power, but you're also at a time where you better make your jump to Europe, or if you are getting interest from Europe, you better take those offer, or else those offer is not going to come by in the next season, or even in the next couple of seasons. So yeah, this is kind of a very strange one, and we'll see whether or not later on, as I mentioned, whether this was Aaron Long's decision that he decided to just stay in MLS and be happy with the Red Bulls, or the fact that the Red Bulls decided just kind of hold Aaron Long hostage and basically keep him there. Because I'm pretty sure if Long later on are saying that he's not happy the fact that he is still staying with the Red Bulls, or he wants his way out, then something tells me this move is pretty much a sign that the Red Bulls are holding Aaron Long hostage and not letting him decide to go to Europe, which is something that not a lot of MLS team have been doing, because they're pretty happy most of these teams are happy to just kind of cash in terms of sending those players to Europe. But there are also occasionally some teams that they feel like if there's a specific player that that provide high value to their team, that they're gonna do whatever they can, even if the players decide to leave, and just kind of bypass that part and still keep them on their team. Now, FC Cincinnati has reported to turn down several big trade offers for Frankie Maya, and this is another player that I thought he could potentially move to Europe. Although, unlike Aaron Long, I think in terms of the surprise of a player decide to not make the jump to Europe and get a move in Europe, Frankie Maya is probably less of a surprise, knowing the fact that, yes, I know it sucks for him to be stuck with potentially stuck with another year with FC Cincinnati, where I feel like, I can definitely see the potential of Frankie Maya, and last season he definitely have shown that he could definitely have some good potential to be a decent player, but he is just stuck with a team that is not only going through a rebuild, but I just don't think this is the right team for him to do. So, either he decided to maybe stick with Cincinnati, or maybe he might decide to request a trade to join another team that has a history of develop young guys and able to sell them off to Europe, or the fact that, again, he need to once again step it up heading into this upcoming season, and just really hope that those big trade offer that it was, as it has reported a couple of days ago, is going to come back, and eventually he is going to get out of FC Cincinnati. Like, again, I'm not disrespecting FC Cincinnati and say that all these players need to leave that team because the situation is bad, but I am saying the fact that Cincinnati is a team that I don't think is going to be competing, at least in this upcoming season, and all these players that wants to either make their jump to Europe or feel like they want to play for a competitive team, it's no surprise a lot of those players want to get out, because FC Cincinnati is definitely not the team that they want to have immediately success. But moving on, in terms of the last two news involving something that I actually had to grab my phone here, which oh god, I don't know where I put my phone is, but I'll probably leave a link in the description below, because these next two news involving me is supposed to show you a picture of what the match ball and also the Union secondary not secondary transfer. I don't know why I wrote secondary transfer here, but it's more like a secondary jersey that the Union have released, and I gotta say, when I look at that secondary jersey, as this pen doesn't work, whatever. When I look at that secondary jersey that the Union have released, it looks absolutely awesome, and honestly, that is a jersey that when it does release, I would definitely want to have one, because the color scheme not only is much more different than any of the ones that it's been released, but it's also the fact that this secondary jersey was designed by the fans. And I think this is something that a lot of these MLS teams can learn from the Union, where sometimes when fans decide to design a jersey, it can actually look better than what Adidas decided to do, and they decided to just put these boring white kind of jersey as a secondary jersey. So yeah, I'm hoping the Union can set a trend for these other MLS teams to really rely on their fans and ask them how their jersey how they want to design their upcoming jersey. And also the other news that I was also going to show you the image is the match ball that is going to be used heading into this upcoming season, and it's not going to be the green and blue kind of color match ball that was used last season, but this is more kind of like a red, white, and blue, and also have a small image of the American flag that is put on the match ball. But again, since I don't have my phone right now, or I can't find my phone right now, I'll just leave a link in the description of how the match ball and also the Union secondary jersey is gonna look like in this upcoming season. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all these news? And as always, if there's any news that I didn't mention on the board that you want me to talk about in these last couple of days, let me know in the comments below, and I would happily reply to those news in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.